desperate black mother asked for expired food for her daughter's birthday. The bakery manager humiliated her in front of everyone, posted online and laughed. But he had no idea she was a former lawyer, or that the quiet man in the corner owned the entire chain. What happened next destroyed his career and exposed a system of cruelty that would shock an entire city. Diana's hand trembled as she pushed open the glass door of Golden Pastry Bakery. The warm smell of fresh bread and sweet pastries hit her immediately, a cruel reminder of everything she couldn't afford anymore. At 35 years old, she had once walked into boardrooms with confidence, commanded respect in courtrooms, won cases that made headlines. Now she was walking into a neighborhood bakery, begging for scraps. Her 6-year-old daughter Anna clutched her hand tightly, her big brown eyes taking the display cases filled with golden croissants, chocolate eclairs, and elaborately decorated cakes. The little girl's stomach growled audibly, and Diana felt her heart shatter into smaller pieces than she thought possible. Behind the counter stood Roberto, the bakery manager. At 28, he wore his authority like a crown. The crisp white shirt, the black apron with golden pastry, embroidered in gold thread, and most prominently, his name badge that read Roberto Manager in bold letters. He was scrolling through his phone, barely acknowledging a handful of customers scattered throughout the small bakery. Diana approached the counter, her worn coat suddenly feeling heavier, more obvious against the gleaming chrome and marble of the upscale establishment. She cleared her throat softly. Roberto looked up with annoyance that quickly morphed into something uglier when he saw who had interrupted his scrolling. His eyes traveled from Diana's faded coat to her scuffed shoes, to Anna hiding behind her mother's legs. A slow, cruel smile spread across his face. "Can I help you?" His tone suggested he'd rather do anything else. Diana swallowed her pride, something she'd had to do far too often in the past 18 months. "Excuse me, sir. I was wondering, do you have any expired pastries? Anything you're planning to throw away?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. "It's her birthday today." Diana continued quickly, her voice dropping to almost a whisper as she gestured to Anna. "I just thought, if you had anything you weren't going to use anyway." What Diana didn't notice, what she couldn't have noticed, was a man sitting alone at the corner table near the window. Gabriel Williams, 48 years old, looked like any other customer in his faded jeans and plain cotton t-shirt. His graying hair was slightly messy, and he'd been methodically working through a simple ham and cheese sandwich for the past 20 minutes. Nothing about Gabriel screamed wealth or power, which was exactly the point. As the founder and CEO of Williams Restaurant Group, which owned 847 establishments across the East Coast with an annual revenue of $2.8 billion, Gabriel made it a practice to visit potential acquisition targets in disguise. Golden Pastry and 6 other bakeries in the area were on his list for possible purchase. He'd been evaluating the product quality, the customer service, the overall atmosphere, but what he was about to witness would change everything, not just for his bakery, but for his entire business strategy. Roberto's response to Diana's request came loud enough to make several customers turn their heads. "H-E-Y everyone," he shouted toward the kitchen, his voice deliberately theatrical. "We got a beggar here wanting free food for a kid." Diana felt heat flood her face. The 3 other customers in the bakery turned to stare. An elderly couple looked sympathetic, but quickly looked away. A young woman in business attire frowned with discomfort and pretended to be absorbed in her phone. Anna began to cry, soft, hitching sobs as she tried to muffle against her mother's coat. "Please, sir." Diana maintained what remained her dignity, though tears threatened at the corners of her eyes. "I'm not asking for anything that costs money. Just something you were going to discard anyway." Gabriel slowly, deliberately, put down his sandwich. His expression remained neutral, but his eyes, the same eyes that had built an empire by reading people and situations in seconds, were cataloging every detailed scene unfolding before him. Roberto leaned over the counter, savoring his position of power. "You know what the problem is with people like you?" His tone was conversational, almost friendly, which made the cruelty even more pronounced. "You always have an excuse. You always have a sad story." He started ticking off on his fingers, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "It's my daughter's birthday. I haven't eaten in days. My dog is sick. I lost my job. I've heard them all." Diana's hands clenched at her sides, but she kept her voice level. "I understand you've heard many stories. I'm sure some were even true. The point is," Roberto continued, clearly enjoying himself now, "this is a serious establishment. We don't feed bums here." He gestured around the bakery as if he owned it himself. "If you want something for your kid, get a job and pay for it like normal people." That's when Anna spoke, her small voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "Mommy, let's go. I'm not hungry anyway." The lie was so obvious, so heartbreaking, that even the uncomfortable young woman at her table flinched. Diana closed her eyes for just a moment. Gabriel watched as something shifted in her posture. Not defeat, but something far more dangerous. When she opened her eyes, there was a cold, calculated fury there that smart people would recognize as a warning. She bent down and whispered something in Anna's ear. Gabriel couldn't hear the words, but he saw the child nod bravely. Then Diana stood up to her full height, looked Roberto directly in the eyes, and said with frightening calm, "You're absolutely right. People like me always have a story." She took Anna's hand and turned toward the door, her back straight as an arrow, her head held high like royalty, leaving the throne room. Roberto laughed, a loud, mocking sound, and actually clapped his hands sarcastically. That's right. Keep moving. This isn't charity. As Diane and Anna walked out, Gabriel noticed something that Roberto, in his arrogance, completely missed. Diana had paused for just a second at the door, her eyes scanning the bakery with the kind of methodical attention that came from professional training. She noted the health certificates on the wall, the security cameras or lack thereof, the employee schedule posted near the kitchen, and most importantly, Roberto's full name embroidered on his uniform. The door closed behind them with a soft chime. Roberto immediately pulled out his phone, still chuckling to himself. Gabriel watched as the manager's thumbs flew across the screen, clearly sharing the story with someone, probably multiple someones. The elderly couple paid for their pastries and left quickly, clearly uncomfortable. The young businesswoman followed shortly after, leaving Gabriel as the only customer. Roberto didn't even glance his way as he continued typing on his phone, occasionally laughing to himself. Gabriel pulled out his own phone and made a quick note. Golden pastry, customer service issues. Investigate management. Potential discrimination patterns. What neither Roberto nor Diana knew was that Gabriel had been planning to acquire this bakery chain as part of a routine business expansion. But that plan had just changed completely. Now he wasn't just interested in buying the business. He was interested in the story unfolding before him. Because in his decades of building a business empire, Gabriel Williams had learned one crucial lesson. The most interesting opportunities often came disguised as problems. And this problem, this collision of cruelty and dignity, of power and vulnerability, was far more interesting than a simple business acquisition. Outside, Diane and Anna walked 3 blocks before stopping at a small park with a broken bench. The little girl sat down, her legs swinging above the ground. Mommy, Anna asked in that direct way children have, why was that man so mean? Diana knelt in front of her daughter, and for the first time, Gabriel, who had discreetly followed them, saw her smile. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a smile of someone who had just made a decision. Because, sweetheart, Diana said softly, pulling an old phone from her coat pocket, some people think they can treat others like trash and get away with it. But they can. Anna asked hopefully. Not always, baby. Not when someone remembers to document everything. Gabriel, standing a respectful distance away near a newsstand, watched as Diana began taking notes on her phone. She wrote for a solid 5 minutes, her fingers moving with the speed and precision of someone trained in legal documentation. He smiled to himself. Diana wasn't just an angry victim looking for revenge. She was something far more dangerous. She was a professional with a plan. Back at the bakery, Roberto's phone buzzed with replies to his group message. He'd sent the story to the employee WhatsApp group, complete with his commentary about putting beggars in their place. The responses were exactly what he'd hoped for. Haha, these people have no shame. Well done, bro, you have to be firm. I bet she made up that birthday story, LOL. Roberto screenshot the messages and sent them to his girlfriend with a caption. Look how I handle these situations at work, flex biceps. He felt powerful, vindicated, like he'd stood up for something important. He had no idea that every message, every screenshot, every digital footprint he was creating would become ammunition in a war he didn't know he was fighting. What Roberto also didn't know was that Diana had returned. She stood across the street, partially hidden by a bus stop shelter, photographing the exterior of the bakery, noting the business hours posted in the window, counting employees visible through the glass, documenting everything with the methodical precision of someone who had spent years building legal cases. Gabriel watched her from his position near the park. She made a phone call that lasted exactly 17 minutes. He was too far away to hear the conversation, but he could see the transformation in her body language. The professional posture, the animated hand gestures, the way Anna sat quietly beside her mother as if accustomed to this mode of operation. When Diana hung up, she looked at the bakery one more time. Then, to Gabriel's surprise, she walked back inside. Roberto saw her coming to the window and actually laughed, pointing her out to Carla, the young assistant behind him, so she could witness what he clearly viewed as entertainment. Diana pushed open the door with the same calm dignity she'd shown before. I forgot to ask something, she said, approaching the counter with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. Do you have an updated health certificate displayed as required by municipal law? Roberto's smirk faltered slightly. What? I asked because I'm planning to file a formal complaint with the health department about several code violations I observed. Diana's voice was pleasant, professional, completely controlled. I'd also like to know if your employees receive training on customer service and consumer rights, because publicly humiliating customers can constitute grounds for a lawsuit. She pulled a small notebook from her coat pocket, the kind lawyers use. Oh, and what's the full legal name of the owner of this establishment? I'll need it for the official complaint documents. Roberto's face changed completely. The smug confidence drained away like water from a broken cup. Look, you can't just come in here making threats. I'm not making threats, Diana interrupted smoothly. I'm exercising my rights as a consumer, rights that, incidentally, are protected by law. She pointed to a faded poster on the wall. I also notice you're not in compliance with price display requirements. Municipal Code 47.3 requires all prices to be clearly visible. She looked directly at him, and her smile turned cold. And Roberto, she read his name badge deliberately. I suggest you be more careful with your social media activity. especially when you post about how you treat customers. She paused for effect. The internet never forgets. Gabriel, who had followed her back inside and was now pretending to examine pastries near the door, had to suppress a smile. This woman was brilliant. In less than 5 minutes, she transformed from victim to predator, and Roberto was only just beginning to realize he made a catastrophic mistake. Diana left without another word, leaving Roberto pale and confused. He immediately grabbed his phone and started frantically deleting messages, posts, screenshots, everything. But as any lawyer knows, once something is digital, it's never truly gone. Outside, Gabriel made his decision. He approached Diana as she walked away. "Excuse me," he called out. Diana turned, instinctively placing herself between the stranger and Anna. "I was in the bakery," Gabriel said carefully. "I saw what happened. And I must say, the way you handled that situation just now was impressive." Diana studied him with the same careful attention she'd given the bakery. Simple clothes, but confident posture, intelligent eyes. Something about him suggested he was more than he appeared. "Thank you," she said cautiously. "And you are—" Gabriel extended his hand. "Gabriel Williams. And I have a feeling you're not exactly who you appear to be either." Diana shook his hand with a firm grip that surprised him. Attorney Diana Santos, former partner at Santos and Associates. Former? Gabriel raised an eyebrow. "It's a long story." Diana glanced at Anna, then back at him. "And you, Mr. Williams? What brings you to a third-rate bakery on a Tuesday afternoon?" Gabriel smiled. "Would you believe me if I said I own it?" Diana's eyes widened slightly. "The bakery? The chain. 847 establishments, actually, across the East Coast." He paused. "Or, at least, I was planning to buy this one. Those plans just changed considerably." They stood on the sidewalk. Two people who had just found each other at exactly the right moment for exactly the right reason. Neither knew yet that they were about to form a partnership that would not only destroy Roberto's career, but transform Gabriel's entire business philosophy and restore Diana's professional life. Inside the bakery, Roberto continued deleting messages, completely unaware that he just revoked two of the most dangerous people he could have encountered, and that they were now quite literally joining forces. The war hadn't started with Diana asking for expired pastries. It had started the moment Roberto chose cruelty over kindness. And he was about to learn that some battles aren't worth winning, especially when you don't know who you're really fighting. Gabriel and Diana sat at a quiet cafe 3 blocks away, Anna contentedly eating a chocolate croissant that Gabriel had insisted on buying. The little girl seemed to understand that the adults needed to talk, occupy herself with coloring on napkins the waitress had kindly provided. "So," Gabriel said, stirring sugar into his coffee, "former partner at Santos and Associates. That's one of the most prestigious labor law firms in the state." Diana smiled sadly. "You did your homework fast." "I run a multi-billion-dollar company. Fast research is part of the job description." Gabriel leaned forward. "But I'm more interested in the former part. What happened?" Diana glanced at Anna to make sure she was out of earshot. "Brutal divorce. My ex-husband was a corporate attorney with powerful connections. Let's just say he used those connections very effectively. He destroyed your career," Gabriel said simply, "systematically. Got me disbarred on technicalities. Turned clients against me. Forced the firm into bankruptcy. I lost partial custody of Anna." Diana's voice was steady, but her hands clenched around her coffee cup. "He made sure I'd never practice law again. But you still think like a lawyer. You can take away my license, but you can't take away my training." Diana met his eyes, which is why Roberto just made the biggest mistake of his life. Gabriel smiled. "I noticed the way you documented everything, the legal terminology, the strategic retreat to build a better case. You're not looking for revenge. You're building a prosecution. Revenge is emotional. Justice is strategic." Diana pulled out her old phone. "I already have a journalist contact interested in the story. Lucas Rodriguez from the investigative reporter who brought down the Gasto Pizza chain." Gabriel's eyebrows shot up. "Diana, you didn't bring a knife to a gunfight. You brought a missile launcher." Roberto posted about humiliating us online. He sent messages to his co-workers bragging about it. He created a digital paper trail that any first-year law student could use to build a discrimination case. Diana's smile was cold. He gift-wrapped his own destruction. Gabriel sat back, reassessing everything. This wasn't just a business acquisition anymore. This was an opportunity to address something he'd suspected for months, that systematic discrimination was happening throughout the restaurant industry, and that his own chain might not be immune. "Diana, I'm going to be direct. I want to hire you. I don't have a license to practice. As a consultant, corporate social responsibility and discrimination prevention." Gabriel pulled out a business card. "I'll pay you a retainer fee that will cover your rent and his needs, and give you resources to build cases like this. In return, you help me clean house across my entire operation." Diana stared at the card. "Why?" "Because what I saw in that bakery today made me sick. Because I suspect it's happening in other places too. And because—" Gabriel paused, choosing his words carefully. "I built my company on the principle that everyone deserves dignity. Roberto violated that principle. I want to make sure it never happens again. And Roberto is going to learn that actions have consequences." Gabriel's expression hardened. But we're going to do this right, legally, thoroughly, and in a way that sends a message to every other manager who thinks they can treat people like garbage. Diana's phone buzzed. A message from Lucas. Diana, I just got your tip. Already found 3 other victims from the same bakery. Can you meet tomorrow? She showed Gabriel the message. He nodded approvingly. Fast work. Lucas is the best. If there's a pattern of discrimination, he'll find it. Then we have 24 hours to build an airtight case. Gabriel stood up. I'm calling my legal team. We're going to turn that bakery inside out. Meanwhile, at Golden Pastry, Roberto couldn't shake the feeling of unease. He deleted all his social media posts, cleared his message history, and spent the last hour trying to remember exactly what he'd said to that woman. His phone buzzed. A message from his girlfriend, Carla. Babe, why did you delete that post about work? I was showing it to my friends. Roberto cursed under his breath. If Carla had shared it, that meant screenshots existed somewhere beyond his control. To make matters worse, he'd already bragged to his friends about the incident. 3 of them had commented, shared, and laughed along. Even if he deleted everything, copies existed in multiple places. He tried to convince himself he was overreacting. She was just some beggar, probably homeless, definitely powerless. What could she possibly do? But something about the way she'd returned, the professional tone, the legal terminology she'd used, it nagged at him. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message in an employee group chat from Marco, one of the bakers. Hey man, you should see this. Someone posted a video. Roberto's stomach dropped. What video? Marco sent a link. It was a TikTok video posted by a teenager who'd been in the bakery. The caption read, "This manager at Golden Pastry just humiliated a mom and her kid on the kid's birthday. This is so messed up. Hashtag Golden Pastry. Hashtag discrimination. Hashtag viral." The video had 15,000 views. Roberto felt his world tilt. How did someone record this? I didn't see anyone filming. But he hadn't been paying attention to the customers. He'd been too busy enjoying his power trip. By evening, the video had 50,000 views. By midnight, it was at 200,000. The next morning, Diana met Lucas Rodriguez at a small diner. The investigative journalist looked exactly as she remembered. Sharp eyes, recorder always running, notebook always ready. Diana Santos, he said, shaking her hand warmly. It's been what, 3 years? Since the Martinez labor case. You broke that story wide open. And you provided the legal analysis that made it stick. Lucas pulled out his tablet. Now, tell me about Golden Pastry. Diana recounted everything, her lawyer's memory capturing every detail. Lucas took notes, nodding occasionally, his expression growing darker. Diana, this is an isolated incident. In the last 6 months, I've received 3 separate complaints about that bakery, all involving low-income customers, all involving Roberto, all with similar patterns of humiliation and discrimination. He showed her his notes. An elderly woman refused service over 70 cents. A homeless veteran denied water. A teenager working minimum wage mocked for asking about employee meals. Roberto has a pattern, Lucas continued, and patterns are what make cases. Can your sources go on record? 2 of them, yes. The elderly woman, Dona Marta, is especially eager. Roberto humiliated her 2 days ago. She's 73, lives on a pension, and was publicly mocked for being 70 cents short on a bread roll. Diana felt her anger crystallize into determination. This isn't about me anymore. It's about everyone he's hurt. Exactly. Lucas leaned forward, and I found something else. The company that owns Golden Pastry, they're under tax audit. If we can prove a pattern of discrimination, it could trigger a federal investigation into their entire operation. At that moment, Diana's new phone buzzed. The one Gabriel had provided along with her consultant contract. A message from Gabriel. Legal team finished their analysis. Roberto violated at least 7 labor laws and 4 consumer protection statutes. We have grounds for termination with cause. Also, health inspection just randomly decided to visit Golden Pastry this morning. Diana smiled. Gabriel was using his power, but carefully, legally. No revenge, just consequences. At Golden Pastry, Roberto was having the worst day of his career. First, the health inspector had shown up unannounced and found multiple violations. Expired products, improper storage, missing certificates. Then his regional manager had called, demanding to know why a viral video showed him humiliating customers. It was taken out of context. Roberto protested. There's a context where mocking a child on her birthday is acceptable. The regional manager asked coldly, "You're suspended pending investigation. Go home." Suspended? You can't. I can and I am. Human resources will be in touch. Roberto left the bakery in a daze. In less than 24 hours, he'd gone from feeling powerful to feeling hunted. He didn't know that Lucas Rodriguez was parked across the street, camera ready, documenting his departure. He didn't know that Diana was 3 blocks away, meeting with Dona Marta and 2 other victims, taking detailed statements. He didn't know that Gabriel's legal team was preparing a comprehensive report on discrimination patterns across the entire bakery chain. And he definitely didn't know that by humiliating one woman, he'd accidentally united a journalist, a lawyer, and a billionaire, all of whom had the means and motivation to expose everything he'd ever done wrong. The investigation was just beginning. And Roberto's carefully constructed world of petty power was about to come crashing down in the most public, most devastating way possible. Friday morning arrived with the force of a reckoning. Roberto woke his phone, exploding with notifications. His Instagram, which had 3,000 followers, now had 847 angry comments on posts dating back months. His Facebook had been tagged in dozens of shares of the original TikTok video, which now had 2 million views. But worse, far worse, was an email from Human Resources. Mr. Santos, please report to the Golden Pastry main office at 10 a.m. for a termination hearing. You may bring legal representation. Termination. The word hit him like a physical blow. He tried calling his regional manager. No answer. He tried texting his co-workers in the group chat. No one responded. Suddenly, he was radioactive. Everyone who'd laughed along with him yesterday was now pretending they'd never known him. At 9:45 a.m., Roberto arrived at the main office, his hands shaking. He'd dressed in his best clothes, prepared to grovel, to explain, to save his career. What he found instead was a conference room full of people who'd been waiting for him. At the head of the table sat a man he'd never seen before, older, gray-haired, wearing an expensive suit. Gabriel Williams, though Roberto didn't know that yet. To Gabriel's right sat Diana, transformed. Gone was the desperate woman in the worn coat. Now she wore a professional suit, her hair styled, her posture radiating confidence. She looked like what she was, a lawyer who'd found her way back to her power. Next to Diana sat Lucas Rodriguez, camera rolling, recording everything. And on the other side of the table sat the HR director, the regional manager, and a woman Roberto recognized with growing horror, the company's chief legal counsel. Mr. Santos, the HR director began formally, "Please sit down." Roberto collapsed into the chair, his legs refusing to support him. "Do you know who I am?" Gabriel asked calmly. "No, sir. I'm Gabriel Williams. I own the Williams Restaurant Group, the company that owns Golden Pastry and 846 other establishments." Roberto's face went white. "And this?" Gabriel gestured to Diana. "Is Dr. Diana Santos, our new Director of Corporate Social Responsibility and Anti-Discrimination Initiatives." Director? Roberto's mind reeled. The beggar was a director? Diana opened a folder, her movements precise and professional. "Mr. Santos, over the past 72 hours, we've conducted an extensive investigation into your conduct as manager of the Golden Pastry location on Maple Street." She began laying out documents like cards in a deadly game. "We have documented evidence of you humiliating at least 7 customers based on their perceived economic status. We have social media posts, which you attempted to delete, bragging about these incidents. We have text messages to co-workers establishing a pattern of discriminatory behavior." Roberto tried to speak, but Diana continued relentlessly. "We have witness testimony from 3 victims willing to go on record. We have video evidence, including one viral clip with over 2 million views, showing you mocking a 6-year-old child on her birthday." She looked up, her eyes cold. "We also have evidence of health code violations, improper food storage, expired certifications, and labor law breaches during your tenure as manager." Lucas leaned forward. "Mr. Santos, would you like to comment on any of these allegations? For the record?" Roberto's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The legal counsel slid a document across the table. "Mr. Santos, you're being terminated for cause, effective immediately. Due to the nature and severity of your violations, you will receive no severance package. Your final paycheck will be mailed to your address." "You can't." Roberto finally found his voice. "This is unfair. I was just doing my job." "Your job," Gabriel said quietly, "was to serve customers with respect and dignity. Instead, you use your position to humiliate vulnerable people. That's not a job, that's abuse of power." Diana added, "You're also facing a personal lawsuit for emotional distress and defamation. The complaint will be filed Monday morning." "This is persecution," Roberto shouted, standing up. "You're destroying my life over one mistake." "One mistake." Diana's voice remained calm. "Mr. Santos, we have evidence of 7 separate incidents. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern. That's who you chose to be." Lucas turned off his camera. "Mr. Santos, my investigative report airs on Channel 7 tonight at 8 p.m. You're welcome to watch it. It's titled The Cost of Cruelty, How One Manager's Discrimination Exposed Systematic Abuse in the Food Service Industry." Roberto staggered toward the door, his career, reputation, and future crumbling around him. "One more thing," Gabriel called out. "I'm implementing new policies across all my establishments. The Dignity First Protocol. No customer will ever be treated the way you treated Diana and Anna. Your cruelty just changed how 847 restaurants operate." The door closed behind Roberto. Through the window, they watched him slump against his car, the full weight of consequences finally crushing him. Diana felt no satisfaction, only a quiet sense of justice. "Is it wrong that I don't feel happy about this?" "It's not about happiness," Gabriel replied. "It's about accountability. You didn't destroy him. He destroyed himself. We just documented it." 6 months later, Diana stood in her new office on the 15th floor of the Williams Restaurant Group headquarters. The view overlooked the city, a far cry from the park bench where she comforted Anna after their humiliation. Anna, now 7, attended a private school and took piano lessons. She kept a framed photo on her bedside table. The ribbon-cutting ceremony, when Golden Pastry, was renamed Community First Cafe, with a new policy of donating day-old products to local shelters. Gabriel had made good on every promise. Diana's salary restored her financial stability. Her reputation was rebuilt. And together, they created a nationwide training program on dignity and anti-discrimination that was being adopted by restaurant chains across the country. Lucas's investigative report had won a regional journalism award and spawned a follow-up series that brought down 3 other discriminatory establishments. As for Roberto, he'd found work washing dishes at a small restaurant 2 towns over. The owner had taken pity on him, but only after Roberto spent months unemployed, facing the reality of how it felt to be judged, dismissed, and humiliated based on circumstances beyond his control. The viral video of his downfall had 4 million views. His name, when Googled, returned pages of results about discrimination and abuse of power. He'd become a cautionary tale, a reminder that cruelty always comes with price. On a random Tuesday, Diana visited the Community First Cafe with Anna. The girl, now thriving, ordered a croissant without hesitation. Carla, who'd been promoted to manager after Roberto's firing, served them with a warm smile. "On the house," Carla insisted. "You changed everything here, Dr. Santos. We actually treat people like people now." On the wall hung a photo, the day of the transformation. Diana, Gabriel, Lucas, and a dozen community members cutting the ribbon. Above it, a plaque read, "Dignity is not negotiable. Kindness is not optional. Everyone deserves respect." As they left, Anna tugged her mother's hand. "Mommy, remember when that mean man said we were beggars?" "I remember, sweetheart. He was wrong, wasn't he? We weren't beggars. We were just having a hard time." Diana knelt down, eye to eye with her daughter. "That's exactly right. And you know what? Sometimes when bad people do bad things, good people get a chance to make things better for everyone." "Is that what you did?" "That's what we did, baby. You, me, Gabriel, Lucas, all of us together." Anna smiled, that beautiful, innocent smile that made everything worthwhile. "I'm glad that mean man was wrong about us." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Epilogue. The truth was both simple and profound. Roberto had tried to humiliate someone he judged by appearances, but he'd misjudged everything. Diana's background, Gabriel's identity, and most importantly, the consequences of cruelty. His downfall hadn't required revenge. It had only required documentation, patience, and the courage to stand up for dignity. Diana proved that the most powerful weapon against injustice isn't anger. It's evidence, expertise, and the willingness to fight for others as fiercely as you fight for yourself. Gabriel learned that business success means nothing if it's built on the suffering of others, and that true power comes from lifting people up, not keeping them down. And Roberto? He learned the hardest lesson of all, that every person you meet deserves respect, because you never know who they really are, what they're capable of, or what alliances they might forge in response to your cruelty. In the end, the question wasn't whether Roberto deserved what happened to him. The question was whether society would finally start holding people accountable for treating others as less than human. Thanks to one woman who refused to accept humiliation, one billionaire who used his power for good, and one journalist who told the truth, the answer was finally, definitively, yes.